Whenever you're ready, Paul.
Coach, you talked a lot last month about being able to finish out games, and I think you guys got up by 15 points, and then they made a 10-0 run and cut it to 45-41. But your team responded, I think, with a 13-1 run to pretty much put it away. Just what was the difference there, and what was kind of said in the huddle?
We obviously had both our point guards in foul trouble. Certainly they start together at the 1 and the 2, but Shaq's plays the 1 when Rams ain't in there, and it wasn't ideal. We had to try to manage it as best we could, and I thought DJ Jeffries and Cam Matthews did an excellent job with some funky lineups that we don't play very often. And at one point I had Shaq out there with 7-8 minutes left maybe, and I turned to Miller and I go, "We're playing with fire, with that much time," and so we just subbed them out and put our trust in the other guys that they could hold it together, and they did. But we didn't really talk too much about closing the game out. We just talked about trying to keep with what we were doing and stick with the game plan, and there's a lot of possessions left in the game.
Was that the first time this year you played Tyler, Cam, and DJ at the same time?
I'm not that smart, that, Paul. You have to look at that up. Talk to the guys in my office that are smart. They can tell you that. I don't know.
Go ahead, Steph.
I think you had mentioned after the TCU game, Tyler had that and one. He got super pumped right in front of the bench, and you said you like kind of seeing those emotions from him. He had that alley-oop later today. Super emotional again, pumped up after that. I guess. Well, what's it like kind of seeing him come into form and be really engaged in these games? It seems like
he's playing really well for us. He's given us that spark. We talked about Shaq coming off the bench earlier and giving us a spark, and now that he's a starter, Tyler's almost assumed that role. Not that we could have predicted that, but he obviously didn't play as well in the fall, and I knew he could make shots for us, and you can see he can defend and rebound and compete at a high level. And when you miss shots like that, it's really easy to lose your confidence, but he's playing with his confidence now. I couldn't be more happy for him. He's obviously a local kid that was living out somewhat of a dream to play for Mississippi State, a team that he grew up watching, and he was having a great career at Southern Miss in our state, and then he was able to come back for 1 year now. For him to be so happy, he's not a kid that smiles a ton, but he does when he makes the big plays, and he lets his emotion out, and I love seeing him when he does that.
Let's go to coach's left and Theo in the front row.
Yeah, so Lou said after the Auburn game you hired yourself back as his free throw coach. What have you thought of his and the team's performances at the line?
It's a good decision, right? He's gotten better. Again, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but Tolo deserves everything that he gets. He is as hard a worker as I've ever been around, and that's some tall corn. I've coached for 31 years, coached some unbelievable players, but I did say he's as hard as anyone, a harder worker. He spends time on his craft. He cares about his craft. He cares about his individual and team productivity. And when he's not in the game, he's as good as we have in terms of being vocal on the bench. And when you get a guy of that stature that's about the team and not, worried about him not being on the floor for whatever reason, is willing to do that, that's special. That doesn't happen that often. And that's really special, and I'm real proud of him. And but I'm telling you, he's put in hours and hours on his free throw stroke and his game, and it's paying off for him.
Go second row to Brian, and then we'll go back down front to Robbie.
Tolo was asked about defense. He said y'all had a good scouting report, but that's not what holds a team under 30 points under its season average. Just defensively, what was working for you guys today to be that effective?
Well, first, tip of the cap to Coach Brooks. He had the scout, and I have a ton of respect for Coach Gates and their staff. I've known him a long time, a big fan of his personally. He's done a tremendous job in his first year at Missouri. I mean, their crowds, their record, their style of play is very unique. It was the hardest prep that I've had since I've been the coach here, in terms of just they play a style that you don't see very often. And not just with the trapping and the pushing and the running, the small ball. They basically start 2 forwards at the same time, and they'll bring in some 5s off the bench and play a little more traditional, but they just never let you relax. They mess with you when you take the ball on the side out, no matter where it is. and underneath the inbounds, they play a funky little zone that goes to man. They played some zone in the half court tonight, which they don't do a ton of. But they just never let you relax. They just keep pounding on you, and they're just like a nuisance, if you will. And they just basically rely on you breaking down mentally and physically, and just saying, "Hey, just take the ball." And that's why we're one of the leading turnover teams in the country. But I thought our guys had great intensity and focus from the get-go. They were really good in preparation for this game. I felt good leaving shoot around today about where they were at in terms of their focus and understanding. Like it ain't about what the coach knows, right? You can watch film until the cows come home. It doesn't matter. It's about what they know when the ball is tipped. And Coach Brooks and the rest of the guys did a good job of making sure they knew what we were trying to do.
When the team